It's time to get serious about animation. But there's one thing that you need to know before we even start, and that is, animation is really hard. So you're probably going to suck at first, but that's totally okay. Everybody sucks when they start out. It's all part of the learning process. But as long as you're comfortable with that and you don't get discouraged, you will get better. I promise. Animation is a continual learning process. You will always be learning and improving, no matter how long you've been doing it. You may have heard the saying, learning to draw is learning to see. And that's true. When you learn to draw, you need to train your brain to pay attention to all the information that it's actually seeing, and then translate that onto the page. Well, animation isn't too different at all. But not only are we observing what's happening in a single instant of time, but we're observing what's happening over changes of time. So what's the key to learning and getting better? Well, it's developing your eye. And what does that mean? Well, that means learning to see faster, learning to see better, learning to see what's happening, learning to see what's not happening. Developing your eye is the most important skill you'll need to learn to become an animator. Because basically, the better you see, the better you will animate. So let's do a little test, shall we? Let's see if you can spot the difference between these two examples. Here's the first one. I'll let it play a few times just so you can absorb what's going on. And now here's the second example. They're exactly the same except for one key thing. Maybe one looks smoother to you than the other? And that's right. Most people could probably see that, but not everyone could actually see why. So what's going on here? Let's take a closer look. The first one is actually playing at 12 frames per second, when the second one is playing at 24 frames per second. Maybe you're able to see that and maybe you weren't. It doesn't matter for the moment because eventually you will be able to see. But the first step is to actually notice that something looks weird, and then you can investigate and figure out exactly what it is. Okay, that was fun. Let's do another little test, shall we? So let's have a good look at this bouncing ball animation. I've actually animated a few errors into it, and I want you to pay attention as you're watching it, just to see whether you can notice anything that looks a little bit odd. We'll watch it a few times with the rendered view, and then we'll take a closer look inside the Blender file. So now we've seen it a few times with the rendered view, we're just going to watch it in the Blender file a couple of times through, and then scrub forwards and backwards over the problem areas. See if you can spot any of the issues. So something weird is happening around there. Again, something happens weird on frame 26. Again on 35. And then something very subtle happens at the end from about frame 50 towards the end. Alright, so now I'm going to go through it one more time just with some annotation so you can see the errors when they occur. So around here you can see on frame 15 that the arc is a little bit out of whack. It goes backwards before it goes forwards. Then on frame 26 the ball just shrinks for no apparent reason. On frame 36 or 35 I think it is, the ball just bounces in the air, and then something very subtle happens from about 48 to the end where the ball just shrinks down into the ground. So I don't expect anyone to diagnose the exact problems from a single viewing of the animation, but the idea is to develop your eye to a level where you can notice that something looks a little bit off and then investigate further to figure out what it is and fix it. Developing your eye is a skill that you have to work on and keep working on. But the good news is that with practice you will get better. So how do you practice? How do you train your brain to actually see faster? Well, that's the fun part. By watching lots and lots of animation, by watching good animation to study what's going on, by framing through it, scrubbing forwards and backwards. You can also watch bad animation, learning from other people's mistakes and learning from your own mistakes. Why is it working? Why is it not working? It doesn't even have to be animation at all. All you need to do is pay attention to the motion that's happening in the real world. You can observe people and things in real life by watching actors on movies and TV. I'll often pull out my smartphone to record any crazy motion that I think is interesting, like a pigeon or a horse. You can also film yourself. It doesn't matter if you don't like the way that you look. You're not interested in that. You're just studying the motion of what's happening. What's happening when you walk? What's happening when you run, when you jump? You don't even have to record yourself though. You can just pay special attention as you're acting these actions out. But the most important skill to get better at animation and developing your eye is by actually animating, and animating a lot. I want you to be scrubbing forwards and backwards, framing through your own work as you go, really paying attention to what's happening. Animation is not an easy journey because animation is really hard. But it is, however, a very rewarding journey because after all, you get to bring characters to life. Alright, so you ready to start that journey? I'm going to assume that you said yes. Great! So there's one more thing that I want you to do before we move on to the next video. Do you remember our example with the bouncing ball that had all the errors? I want you to download that from the source files and really pay attention to what's going on here. It won't take long. I want you to spend about 2 or 3 minutes just watching it over and over. I want you to watch it at speed. I want you to scrub forwards. I want you to scrub backwards. I want you to frame through those problem areas. The reason I want you to do that is you may not be able to see the errors at speed now, but the more you expose your brain to this stuff, the more it will absorb. It's actually part of developing your eye. So even if you can't see it now, I promise you, with practice, you will. So give it a go. I'll see you in the next video.